Man, is it cold outside. So, the little heater is on down there. Doesn't seem like much, but it does the job. So, yeah, got a couple of jobs. I need to start grinding the paint off around here to work out where I can unpick the roof from. Got a couple of questions across to Steve as well. So obviously he did cookies wonders recently. I want to get the whole thing off so we can have a look under there and see what weight we can cut out. So I'm going to do an easy job tonight. It's cold. I don't want to be out here too long. So we're keeping the standard dash bar in place. So I want to start taking off some of these additional brackets that we don't need anymore and looking behind here, taking things out of the way. Again, every single gram counts. So hop on with that, get the angle grinder in there, start dressing that up, and then we hope to then build, with the help of Spark Developments, kind of a new mini center console that holds the switches and the relays I need up front. And then they're also going to reuse the relay and fuse box they made for us last year in the IP rated box, and we'll have that in the back next to the battery as well. So best get the angle grinder out and get cracking again. AR12 I cleaned up last night. You zoom in nice and close, you can actually see the mini heaps of dust that Della's been making there by stripping the paint off. There is a lot of stuff that she has done in here. It looks more silver and even better every time I look in here. So yeah, it's going to be a lovely fresh canvas for the paint to go on. Well, another 2 minutes worth, 4, 5, 10 minutes worth of grinding. We have a nice smooth bar now. Got rid of all those unsightly brackets and stuff on there. See a nice little heap. Ooh, not that one, but yeah, nice little heap of the brackets and stuff on there. These are actually the ones that I made back in the day for the 350 to hold the ECU on. So yeah, went full on farmer spec with some nice 3mm by 40mm bits of flat there, just bent round. Actually, it was bent round the old jack that I used to use, but got rid of that. So yeah, starting to shave a bit more weight. Now it's time to start taking off some of these other little weird, like dash location pins and the little kind of things that hold the HVAC system on. So all in all, this is everything that came off the dash. Got no idea how much it weighs, but yeah, I'm pretty surprised actually at everything that came off it. Some of these bits are pretty meaty actually. Well, this is a lie, this one came out from behind the seats, but again, it's pretty thick steel, obviously used for some part of maybe original seat belts or seat mounting position, but yeah, obviously there's no need for us now. We've got the Schroth harness bar and the harnesses in there, so yeah, starting to look a lot tidier. So you've just been seeing me stripping the paint off on the outside of the roof. Yeah, it's all looking pretty good, but as you well know, when you were a kid and you didn't want to do your schoolwork, you kind of looked at it for ages, didn't really kind of do anything in the end. So what I've been doing instead is using my little O-ring pick and actually picking out some of the sealer, but also I've counted the amount of spot welds that are around this damn thing. And yeah, there are 76. There's no easy way of putting it. So I think I know what I'm going to be doing for the next few hours. It's when I wish that COVID lockdown didn't exist, because then could have got the team up to have got another like 2 or 3 spot weld drill bits each, and we could have hammered around this thing in no time. But yep, guess I'm in it for the long haul. So unfortunately, just as quick as it has started, it has stopped. So yeah, as I was mentioning, loads of spot welds to do. But as I was looking more into actually what the job entailed ahead, the reason I've got the light here is hopefully so you can see these tiny little lines that are along here. Seems like there is some kind of like bead weld or something along there as well. So I think I counted about 9 or 10 per side to add on top of the 76 spot welds that are there. So yeah, I think at this point I'm going to call it and say, yeah, I'm not going to take the entire roof off. I'm a bit gutted about that because I really wanted to get stuck in taking this horrible brace out and making sure that that was taken out right to the very edge of the roof. But you know, you can't always have it every way, so we'll just make sure that when Christian comes here with the new fiberglass roof skin, that, you know, when we're measuring up, we make sure we leave the absolute minimum amount of steel work up there. hopefully to allow us access maybe to the spot welds that hold that bracing underneath. I just don't know. We'll just have to take it a little bit at a time and see what we can do. So next job, I've got to get the bits and pieces ready to send off for the prop shaft. I've got a new adapter that I'll show you in a little while from Torken to change from the 3-bolt flange on the back of the transmission to the 108 CV joint style. So yeah, we'll get that taken off. Oh, sorry, we'll get the transmission in place, get that mounted up properly, get the subframe and the diff back in, and then get measuring so we can get that right first time. Right, so we come over to the corner of the garage, which is obviously a little bit dirty to find. Obviously, engine and transmission just shoved in the corner, which is pretty crazy considering this is such an important part of the drift car. But this is one thing we're actually not going to be touching at all this year, which is fantastic. But as I was mentioning earlier, this is the 3-bolt output flange for on the standard GM output for the transmission and the Camaro on the prop shaft. So what I've got from Adrian is this pretty funky little bit of kit. It's a piece of aluminium, pretty expensive, from Drive Shaft Shop, but this allows us to go straight onto there, put some big bolts through, and then converts it then to the CV joint, which allows us to then have a slight little bit more discrepancy about the angle of the prop shaft and stuff, which in the past we have had the rubber donut, which you've got to be within like point something of a degree. It's really tight tolerance on that, otherwise you get vibrations and then it burns out the donut itself. So converting to this thing will make things a lot easier for us, because we are going to be then at a standard UJ actually on the diff end. So we'll haul this into place, get that up there, then get the measurement done, and then we'll cut the end actually out of the carbon prop shaft for the 350, and then box it up and send off to Dave Mack. Okay, so all the measurements are done. I'm really happy to actually find out that the overall prop length is going to be just marginally over 1.2 meters, which is fantastic for us, because John at Dave Mack said anything under 1.3 for the revolutions we're doing with the engine and stuff like that, we can actually go to a single piece prop. So that's going to save all of that weight as well of the center bearing, and also because we are under 1.3, we can now start to think about maybe even reducing the tube size just a fraction. But every little bit counts, first off with weight, but secondly for clearance, because we're going to be running the Advocate stainless steel coolant lines under there, and also the fuel lines as well, because we want to make sure we're keeping as much stuff out of the cabin as possible. So yeah, every little bit counts. So next thing for us is going to be finding out where this flange, or this prop shaft UJ joins on into the carbon. I think it's around here because I can feel there's a slight change in the diameter, so we'll start cutting that off, get those bits boxed up and get them sent away. So it's time to show you guys one of the other presents that we bought for the 350Z this year, amongst many others, which is this, which is a little full throttle battery, courtesy of Axel at Anglo American Oils. So thank you for sending that through. Also comes with a funky OBP manufactured bracket. So this battery is about 8 kilos less than the big Bosch battery I had in there before. And yeah, we're hoping that that is now going to sit in here. So you can see some of the lines I've already marked out at this point. But yeah, the idea is now I'm going to work out the footprint of the battery, and then we'll put a new flat piece of steel in for that to sit on. And then we'll have it ready then for obviously the main power to go down through the centre of the car up to the new dash that we're going to make soon, and then obviously power all the bits and pieces that are around in the back here. So yeah, hopefully another 8 kilo saving there. Still had to be pretty hefty because obviously the V8 takes so much to start it, and we're running a massive fan as well as many other guys. So yeah, we still had to make sure that we were capable of starting the car up again if we needed to, when we if we stalled on the track or whatever like that. So so yeah, every gram counts. Is that working? Okay, so here is the little panel. Yeah, should nicely have the battery sit clean on top of there. Unfortunately made out of steel, which is, as we know, oh so heavy. So yeah, now it's time to clean this bit up, hole saw it and dimple die that so it's got a bit of rigidity. And then yeah, I think we're actually ready to weld it in place. So it's been a busy afternoon for me. I think I've got what I wanted in place, just needs to be welded in. So yeah, a couple of captive nuts on the bottom there. As you can imagine, many hole saws and dimple dies and stuff like that, but it allows the battery to sit in there perfectly level and flat, nice and strong. So just wait for the weldable primer to dry, and then we'll tack that in, and then that'll be one other job off the list. Before I start hole sawing the inside of the car, which is going to be tonight's project, I just wanted to show you this funky little bit of kit that has just been sent through by Spark Developments for me for this year. So this tiny little black gadget here is actually going to be my new battery isolator. It works on removing the negative battery from the chassis, so I've got to make sure obviously everything is well grounded to that. And that also allows us then to use the proper like push button up on the bonnet and on the dashboard instead of that big red key, those old-fashioned pull cord things that always used to get seized up and generally caused a bit of a problem. And when Brad at the scrutineering used to pull on those, you always used to worry if it was going to work or not, or if it was going to work actually when it really needed to. So yeah, having something a little bit more professional like that will obviously make the whole setup a little bit better. It also only weighs 67 grams, which is fantastic, as every gram counts, as we well know on this build so far. So yeah, I better learn how to do a little bit of wiring and get that one sorted out when I start getting the whole car rewired for 21. So yeah, now time to get the old hole saws out and the cone drill and start pulling a few more holes in this thing. So about time I took a break from drilling a million holes in the rest of the car. So I think today I'm actually going to have a go at trying to find a good spot to fit the little Cartec XR isolator. Sort of got a few ideas. I've had it sort of thinking about making a little bracket around the back here or directly onto the chassis there. But then there's another one, I might even try and put it here. So I think it's about time I started getting some bits of metal cut out, right shape and stuff like that, so we can actually start trying to put this in place and keep silly little things like the wire lengths down to as minimum as possible. Obviously keeps it nice and tidy, clean out, and obviously keeps the weight down as best we can. So yeah, time to get stuck in. Well, in typical biz fashion, I was thinking about massively over-engineering it. I made this lovely little net shape again out of my shreddies boxes and was going to weld that bracket onto the side there. And then I thought, well, you know, is that getting a bit too crazy? And typically, I was like looking around thinking there's no flat space in this place whatsoever. But luckily, this is so tiny, there is actually this perfect little spot here, which, yeah, get that nicely centered in there. Yeah, so I think what I'll do is I'll just drill out the two holes, captivate a couple of nuts underneath, and then just make sure that I tape over this area when I'm painting to make sure that stays nice and shiny. So then this obviously gets a good earth, because I've been told if this, well, as you can imagine, if this doesn't actually have a good connection with the base, we're then going to have all kinds of intermittent issues and stuff like that with the engine trying to cut in, cut out, and that can make a whole lot of pain for us next year, or well, this season I should say, sorry. So yeah, simple often is the winner. Well, that turned out to be a nice and easy install. Probably found the only bit of flat floor pan left in this rear section, but luckily the XR is small enough to fit in there. So you're probably also wondering why I'm fiddling around doing silly little jobs like this when obviously the car is in such a crazy state. But yeah, obviously due to COVID, we're waiting for some of the body parts to come. So I believe that the guys over at Firefly are going to be getting those over to us in the next week, so we can start mocking those up, because we've got some additional bits of pipework and stuff we need to make on here to hold on the Kevlar rear quarters, and obviously work on the elusive roof skin that's been causing me all kinds of headaches trying to work out how we're going to do that properly. Also, I'm going to have to start mocking up where you know, put the subframe in, put the engine back in briefly, the tank and the cooler pack. so then I can start to do some measurements for Tom at Advocult, so then we can start getting those pipes measured up. So yeah, over the next few days it's going to be a bit of kind of assembly and then disassembly, but it's all going to be worth it in the long term. So really starting to knock off some of these small jobs now, and one of them is the new meth tank and meth pump locator. So yeah, instead of all that weight being at the front, now we've got that tucked against the passenger side again to try and offset my weight a little bit. You can see the inside of the radium fuel filler cap, which will send a pipe straight down to about here. And then I've got a bit of the roof on just so you can kind of get a little bit of the idea about what's happening. So yeah, this is the little like B-pillar cover. There's obviously a big piece that will fill in this gap and cover these screws up. This is just placed in here just for the sake of sort of demonstration purposes. And yeah, behind this little panel here, these little slide locks. Pop that off there. Obviously there will be a way for me to actually hold on to this when it comes to it. And now I can't get the thing off. There we go. Right. It's going to be a lot more slick than that when it actually comes to the main event. But tucked away in there is some ethanol tank, so we can now get to that, fill it up with meth every now and again, and put everything back together. And that's all without having to take off this part of the roof, as the boot as well, which I'm super chuffed about. So now I've done that side, I can now prep to weld on a couple of extra tabs in here, so then we can get access then to the two new header tanks that I'm going to be making for supercharger on this side and radiator on that side. So yeah, time to get the TIG set out. It's been a bit of slow progress over the last few nights. Like I said, still waiting for some parts. Obviously, been doing a bit more tidying up, doing a bit more drilling and stuff here and there. Dell's been stripping off even more paint of the car, which is why everything is covered in dust, including the inside of our lungs. But yeah, tonight it's going to be a slightly different sort of story. So I'm going to be tidying up the garage tonight and the car, because last night I had a long chat with Tom from Advocult, and I need to start putting in the monster back actually into the front of the car, with the gearbox, with the diff, with the fuel tank and all the other kind of bits and pieces, so we can actually get under the car and start doing some measurements for all the pipe work that we're going to get from Tom. So that's going to be coolant lines for the radiator, coolant lines for the supercharger, new fuel lines, new oil filter lines. Basically anything you can do about moving the fluid around this car is going to be done. So also, you know, obviously it's going to be a fair bit of work. So whilst I'm doing that, I'll also be able to measure up all the wiring aspects and stuff like that for Sam at Spark Developments. Because obviously we need some new battery wires there, and also we can work out where all the kind of little connections and stuff like that are going to go. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a busy night trying to get that ready, so I can get those measurements done and in soon. Also, it means I can double check the length of the prop shaft as well, so I'm fingers crossed I've got the measurements for that right through calculation. So yeah, bit of a change of pace. Today is also new tool day. I know everyone loves one of those. So with the amount of riv nuts and so on that we had to be putting into this car for the new bodywork, I thought it's about time I had a look into a new riv nut tool, and this was recommended to me by my Torque and teammate Chris Wright, and very nicely donated to me as well by Upex Properties. So yeah, thank you very much for that, guys. This should hopefully help speed up the process of getting these riv nuts put in, all aluminium. Obviously to keep the weight down. This can go everywhere from M5 to M12, I believe. And yeah, I've always struggled with, you know, obviously using either bolts with spacers on it or using kind of cheap quality riv nut tools that eventually snap and stuff like that. So thought this time might as well go for the real deal, make it easy for ourselves when we want to do the job properly first time round. Well, she's in. Turned out to be a little bit more of a headache than I thought because of this stupid like little slab ramp that the previous owners of this house put in front of the garage, which they obviously thought was a great idea to keep the rain out and or whatever, or just for a bit of aesthetics. But I tell you what, when trying to push an engine on an engine crane, you know that even a cable tie will trip these damn things up. So yeah, having that slope to get up was a nightmare. But yeah, thanks to Dell, she gave me a push and we got it in. So yeah, she's back in her home. Obviously, there's loads of things to go on. I have the manifolds in the darkness down here. They need to go back on. So then I can sort of start getting an idea about how we're going to best utilize this space that, again, you can't see because it's so dark. Oh, there we go, got a little bit more. So yeah, time to bolt on a few more bits and pieces, get the fuel tank in. Obviously we're going to have to guess because of the prop shaft where that's going to go, but I did actually just hop under there and measure the prop shaft just to make sure that I sent Dave Mack the right dimensions, and I'm happy to say I was only a millimetre out. So yeah, shows I can get the odd measurement right when I use a tape measure. So yeah, time to get cracking again and get this thing looking a little bit more kind of like a car. Okay, cool, so you saw me just put the charger in position there. So yeah, that's just rested on the top, a little bit dusty as everything is around here. Also just put on the the actual little bit of slam panel that goes on underneath where the windscreen is. Obviously we're going single wiper this year. So yeah, there's going to be a couple of little holes that'll be a bit defunct, but also it just gives me an idea of actually how much space then we have left under there for obviously the new brake master cylinder and stuff going in there. I think that I'm going to be putting the fuel reg along here, and then we can clip on the new fuel line that goes straight around there and joins onto the back of this, unless Tom has any other suggestions, or if you do actually. So yeah, I think we're finished on the front end for tonight. So next up I will then be chucking in things like the fuel cell back in. I haven't made the header tanks yet, so they can't go in, so I just have to kind of imagine where they're going to be for the measurements. Yeah, I'll just kind of rest the two water pumps where they need to be. So I think I'll leave that for tomorrow because it is getting absolutely damn freezing in here now. So yeah, going to call it a night and crack on tomorrow and get the heater on.